Please welcome Namo Marouf.
Thank you. I should probably have drinking some water before I came up on stage. Feels amazing to see all these beautiful faces. Have you had a good gather experience so far? Yeah? It took a while for me to understand that the path that I've chosen in life was obvious. And I'm going to tell you why. The year was 1982, and my parents just arrived to Sweden. The same decade I was born. We had an apartment in a pink high-rise. At the time when I was a kid, it was a high-rise, but I think it was only 5 stories high. We lived on the second. It was a part of the Million Program Scheme, which was a public housing program between 1965 and 1974, with the aim of building 1 million homes to provide people with affordable housing. Now, you can only imagine the stigma that arose around these neighborhoods, but that's another talk. Because this pink high-rise was my fortress. This is where I learned how to walk. This is where I learned how to bike. And this was where I got my very first friends. And it was friends from all the corners around the world. And we represented Stockholm at that time. And it was here I experienced the positive things of different backgrounds. The positive things of people with different backgrounds and cultures and different perspectives. Because our diversity was good. Not only did I receive knowledge about different cultures, but also we came to appreciate each other's differences. Now, this is not obvious for everyone, but this is how I was brought up. It was here, from the pink high-rise, from the balcony where my mom and dad shouted that the food was ready. And it was here where I sat at several meetings and discussions in apartments and premises about social matters, and it was here that my interest arose. And I learned how to feel empathy. And I got understanding of different people's life fates. I saw it and I experienced it every day. And this does something to a kid. If we fast forward, I had good grades in school. So I applied to the Royal Institute of Technology, also known as KTH. I knew that at the time it was going to be a challenge because I was more interdisciplinary and artistic, or that's what I thought. However, it turned out to be the perfect combination. I started studying sustainable urban planning. And the reason for my choice was that I knew in my heart that there are better ways to plan cities for people, right? With an emphasis for people. And by that, I mean all kinds of people. Not only the norm, which is the case today. You can call me naive, but this is still my strong belief. And I believe that we can change the way we plan. I believe in a city where people are not disregarded because of the color of their skin, because of their religion, their socioeconomic background, their gender, their sex. You get it. We're all equal, right? Kumbaya. However, this doesn't seem to be obvious for everyone. Because if it was, our cities wouldn't look like the way they do. we wouldn't have cities with increased polarization, increased segregation. We wouldn't have gentrification as a result of a man-made process. They wouldn't be as unjust, right? So since we created this city, we can also change it. We can change the way we work, and we can change the way we think of a city. I believe that we can put those stories first that are not always heard. Because when we walk around in the city, a lot of times, maybe we don't feel that that city belongs to us. I remember that I used to think, or I still think, when I see a high-rise, that there are infinite amounts of windows. Think of a skyscraper. And behind every window, there are multiple stories. Stories of a mother, stories of a doctor, stories of a child, a cleaner. You get me? And all these stories, they have special places in our cities. At KTH, I very fast learned there is no such thing as a universal solution for how a city is to be planned, or how a neighborhood is to be planned. So context-based planning therefore means that we need to include the people when we plan. Since I believe it is the people that creates the context of what a city is. And I don't mean inclusion as we tick off boxes and we say, okay, now this place is sustainable. I mean inclusion for real. I mean fair, real inclusion. Not tokenism, right? Fair inclusion, not tokenism. Because all these perspectives matter. Diversity and representation matters. And now you would want to say Black Lives Matter, but that's another talk. You were supposed to laugh. So, research shows us that innovation is best created through the collaboration between different perspectives. The collaboration between different perspectives. It doesn't sound very difficult. And this is something we experience at House of Sparks every day. We know that if we're in a room where we have different perspectives, we will get those breakthrough ideas that hopefully change the world. But if we're in a room where everyone thinks the same, well, the revolution is not going to come. So diversity leads to the emergence of breakthrough ideas, and they take us forward. Within urban planning, there's been an approach called the triple helix. A helix is just a diagram with 3 circles, like the sustainability helix. So the triple helix is an innovation model supporting the relation and co-creation between universities, government, and the industry. And recently, the term quadruple helix has been used, in which the 4th helix is the involvement of the civil society, whereby the end user, which could be the citizen, it could be the worker, it could be the patient, depending on which context we're in, enters the equation and becomes directly involved in the innovation process. So this approach to empathize with the end user will help us work fast forward, and it is something that has been shown to be effective in different fields, in other fields, but then with the term design thinking. So using this in urban planning as well, it makes sure that we can build the right it before we build it. And imagine if we could tackle urban issues such as segregation and polarization, and even gentrification through this approach early in the process. And that's key here, early in the process. Would it help us to easier prevent negative effects when we build new areas? Or more importantly, would it help us to understand the issue better when we involve the end user from their perspective? For instance, I've lived in so-called segregated areas, and through my career and during university, I've seen that my viewpoint and my perspective about these areas is very different from those who haven't experienced it firsthand. Because my experience is positive, and this is why we need different perspectives. This shift towards the quadruple helix approach is very much needed, because we have to find new ways of how to work more inclusively, to be able to work more socially sustainable. And why is this? Well, the old ways, or even the current ways, the way we're working today, they don't work in all contexts. And I'm not saying this approach is applicable in all contexts, but this is a new, innovative way of working. And this shift, it has to come from an inner desire. We have to give the keys to the city to those who don't have it, and continuously test new innovations, because this is not implemented in the way we work today. In the long run, we will all benefit from this more holistic approach to how we plan. In my pink fortress, this is actually the fortress that I'm talking about. It's not very beautiful, but in my pink fortress, I was raised by my parents. I was raised by my sister. I was raised by my aunt and my parents' friends. I could tell you 10 more people that raised me, but you get the point. I was formed by different perspectives. And I learned, and I believe, that the power of perspective results in better anchored decisions. So I therefore want you, when you walk away from here, think about these 3 points that I'm going to give you. And it could be a discussion at the dinner table, or when you're in the shower, or just when you're walking. I'm not telling you leave this room now, but I'm just saying when you leave. Number 1, representation and diversity. Include a representative group of people through a concrete process. And this is not difficult. We do this every day at House of Sparks. And if you need help or you have questions, just come talk to me or email me. Number 2, start doing. Okay, you need to test, and test. Because nothing will be useful if it's stuck in your head. And also, don't test too late in the process. Test early. Because if we do it too late in the process, there will be no use. And last but not least, I want you to ask yourselves, can we build a city for all if all are not included? I can't drop my mic because it's stuck to my cheek, but thank you very much.